Israel launched a horrific attack inside Lebanon this September, which injured nearly 3,000 people and killed dozens, including 4 children. In order to carry out this attack, Israeli intelligence agents put explosives inside pagers and walkie-talkies that then blew up, causing chaos and mayhem in Lebanon. Now, defenders of Israel say that the targets of the attack were militants from the armed group Hezbollah, but in reality, many civilians were injured and some were killed in this attack. And in response, the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah has said that this is an act of war against Lebanon as a country. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah said, quote, "It is an act of war against the people of Lebanon, Lebanon's sovereignty. It is a declaration of war." The Washington Post reported that U.S. officials know it was Israel behind the attack, and I'll be looking at reports showing how U.S. intelligence agencies knew that Israel was planning this attack for years. U.S. officials also told NBC News that they know that Israel was behind this attack, and they acknowledged in this report that among the 4 children killed in this Israeli attack were an 11-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl. Now, despite the fact that civilians were killed and injured in this attack, Israel's supporters will claim, well, it was only targeted against Hezbollah, ignoring the fact that even if some Hezbollah operatives were killed in these explosions, in many cases they were with their family members. They were driving a car with their family members. They crashed the car and their family members were injured or killed. They were at a grocery store with their family members and it blew up and injured or killed people around them. There were many civilians, including children and women and family members, who were with these people when the pagers and walkie-talkies exploded. This was an act of terrorism. In fact, after the attack, there was a session held by the UN Security Council, and in this meeting, Russia and China denounced this attack. The Russian representative referred to it as a terror attack and pointed out that Israel would not have been able to carry out this terror attack were it not for the support that it has received from the United States. China's representative in the UN Security Council said that his country was shocked that the attack was unheard of and violated international law. He said that the Israeli attack, quote, deserves nothing but condemnation, end quote. The Chinese representative also said that, quote, decisions should be taken to stop Israel from going forward with its aggression. Now, this horrifying attack is historic on many levels. What Israel has done is open Pandora's box. This is going to have massive repercussions around the world, not only politically, but also economically. Because in order to carry out this attack, Israel manufactured these pagers and walkie-talkies using the name of a Hungarian company, so from Europe, that also had an agreement with a Taiwanese technology company to use their brand. So now what we see is a massive backlash with people in the so-called Middle East and West Asia and many other parts of the global South saying that we can no longer trust technology from Western companies. So now this Israeli attack has many people asking, can we trust any phones or computers or cars or any other technology that we buy from a US company, from a European company, from a Japanese or South Korean or Taiwanese company? And this is also at a time when the US is waging economic war and a trade war on China and telling people around the world they cannot trust Chinese products, that instead they should only buy products from the West and its allies. But now we know that the US and its allies are willing to weaponize this civilian technology and turn it into bombs to blow up people they don't like. So this is only going to further fragment global supply chains. And this ironically could end up helping China by increasing China's popularity in the global South among countries that don't trust the West, the Western countries that colonized them and invaded them and bombed them and occupied them. Instead, they're going to say, we should rely on Chinese supply chains and Chinese technology. In fact, there are reports on Chinese social media of people who run factories that they actually are now flooded with orders from the Middle East, from West Asia, with customers demanding that all of the supply chain must be located inside mainland China. Clearly, there's a lot of demand for Chinese technology, and these customers do not want any part of the supply chain from the West. And this is really what Western governments do not understand. The world today is no longer the world of the 1990s. In fact, today, the majority of countries on Earth have China as their largest trading partner, not the US. In 1990, yes, the US, Germany, and Japan were major industrial powers, and they were the leading trading partners of many countries. But in the past 3 decades, the situation has completely changed. Today, China makes up 35% of the entire world's manufacturing production. The US only makes up 12%, Japan makes up 6%, Germany makes up 4%, and India and South Korea each make up 3%. Now, that is just the data for all manufacturing production. But if you look at the global market share for major technologies like, for instance, phones, you can see that China is becoming very influential. So if you look for the second quarter of 2024 at the most popular phone brands on Earth by the number of shipments, you can see that number 1 is Samsung, which is South Korean. Number 2 is Apple, which is ostensibly a US company, but in reality, most of the supply chain is located in China. But the third, fourth, and fifth most popular phone brands in the world are all Chinese. Xiaomi comes in a close third place right behind Apple. Vivo, another Chinese company, is in fourth place. And Oppo, another Chinese company, is in fifth place. So very quickly, Chinese brands have been catching up with Western rivals. If you look at personal computers, you can see a very similar trend. In 2023, the company with the largest market share, 25% of the global PC market, this is for both desktops and laptops, was Lenovo, 25%. That is a Chinese company, Lenovo. In second place and third place was HP and Dell. Apple was in fourth. And then the fifth and sixth placed companies were Asus and Acer, which are both Taiwanese companies. So yes, the US companies do have a larger market share globally in the PC market for desktops and laptops, but that's also changing over time, and Chinese competitors are going to have more and more market share. And this is before Israel and the US and Western allies weaponized the supply chain and weaponized this civilian technology and turned it into bombs to kill people. This trend is now going to accelerate as more and more people in the global south say, we can no longer trust Western technology. Instead, let's buy technology from China. They're saying, well, China seems to be more reliable because at least China doesn't invade countries. It doesn't bomb countries. It doesn't impose unilateral sanctions on countries and organize coup attempts and regime change operations like the US does constantly. The US is waging war around the world. The US has 800 foreign military bases. Now, let's provide some context here. One of the questions that many people have been asking is, where did these pagers and walkie-talkies come from? How did Israel put the explosives in this technology that then blew up and killed dozens of people and injured thousands in Lebanon? Well, the New York Times published a report that provides information from the inside. Of course, the New York Times is very closely linked to US spy agencies. This article, which by the way pointed out that 4 Lebanese children were killed in the Israeli terror attack, it quotes 12 current and former defense and intelligence officials who were briefed on the attack and say that Israel was behind it. They revealed that Israel created a shell company that posed as an international producer of pagers. The name of the company was BAC Consulting, and it was officially based in Hungary, in Europe, and they were under contract to produce walkie-talkies and pagers on behalf of the Taiwanese company Gold Apollo, but it was an Israeli front. So this is very important. They were under a Taiwanese name, Gold Apollo. Taiwan is involved, Hungary is involved, and Israel was the one that carried this out. They actually had ordinary clients, and it did produce ordinary pagers for people. So this again shows that Israel, with the support of the Western powers, has weaponized civilian technology and the global supply chain. Furthermore, this is not the only example of this. This article in the New York Times pointed out that Israel has acquired new means to hack into phones, activating microphones and cameras remotely to spy, and therefore Hezbollah ordered its supporters, its operatives, to not use any cell phones, not even encrypted messaging apps, because they know that Israel can spy on people and use their phones regardless of the software. They're using the hardware. This is why Hezbollah has banned the use of cell phones in all meetings and in any discussion of sensitive operations. And this is why they were using walkie-talkies and pagers. The New York Times concluded this report noting that people in Lebanon, quote, now live in a world in which the most common of communication devices can be transformed into instruments of death, end quote. But it's not just people in Lebanon. It's everyone. It's all of us. And more people in the global south, countries, companies, are now going to seek alternatives, and it's going to fragment global supply chains as they seek alternatives to Western technology. Back in 2015, the director of the U.S. National Security Agency, the NSA, which is notorious for spying on people, the NSA director admitted that the U.S. spy agency has been putting backdoors in technology companies. And by the way, the NSA not only spies on its own citizens, but the NSA has been spying on many countries around the world, including leaders of countries that are supposedly U.S. allies, like Germany. Famously, this was exposed by WikiLeaks a decade ago, that the NSA had tapped the German government and was listening to the phone calls of Germany's longtime leader, Angela Merkel. This is how the U.S. treats its so-called allies. Imagine how the U.S. treats its adversaries. And of course, Israel does this as well. We know this from the Lebanon pager attack, but the Washington Post reported back in 2021 on the infamous Israeli company NSO Group and its spyware Pegasus. The Washington Post noted that military-grade spyware licensed by this Israeli company was used to hack dozens of smartphones belonging to journalists, human rights activists, and business executives. And in fact, this September, just a few days after the Israeli terror attack inside Lebanon, the president of Ireland, a Western ally, a part of Europe, the president of Ireland accused Israel of spying on him. He said that Israel had somehow gotten access to a letter that he had sent, a private letter that he had sent to Iran, a diplomatic letter. Israel leaked this confidential private letter that was written by the president of Ireland. It shows how little the Israeli regime cares about the privacy of other countries in the West that are supposedly allies. And the US government has claimed that it had nothing to do with this attack. Secretary of State Antony Blinken claimed that the US did not know about this attack. But this is contradicted by the statements made by anonymous US intelligence officials who revealed how Israel planned this operation over years. They knew about this. So if the US government knew about this attack for years, and they now want to claim that they had nothing to do with it, at the very least, they gave their green light to Israel to carry out this attack. because the US knew about it. And if they were opposed to it, because they knew it would kill civilians like 4 children, which is what it did, then they would have stopped Israel. They would have said, look, you can't do this. This would be an act of terrorism. So at the very least, if the US wasn't directly involved, it is complicit because it knew that Israel was planning this terrorist attack and did nothing to stop it. So the point I'm getting at here, it's so important to understand that Israel has opened Pandora's box. This Israeli terrorist attack in Lebanon is not just about Lebanon. It's not just about the Middle East, about West Asia. It's not just about the possibility of a wider regional war. Those are, of course, very important issues as well. But this issue is global. It involves the entire global economy, and it's going to blow back majorly on Western companies. It's going to fragment supply chains. It has very significant consequences.